Dawson Rider review.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for the Hasbro Power Rangers Lightning Collection Wave 10 Zeo Ranger II Yellow figure. Also being reviewed separately because these all shipped at very weird times and she especially had a delay. So I will review these either separately or as a set in the future depending on how they're shipped to me. But let's go ahead and get started going over the accessories to get that out of the way first. So we have her civilian head here, which honestly looks fine. To me, this is like nitpicky, but it seems almost like Tanya's like turbo look rather than Zeo. The only reason I bring that up is because they actually seem to pay attention to that in regard to hairstyles when they have characters from multiple seasons. But overall, I think it looks solid. I don't really have any too huge complaints. In addition to the holding weapons hands, you just have two sort of relaxed / karate hands. You have both of her Zeo sidearms, which are very well painted. You have your standard Lightning Collection effect blasting part for the blaster. And then you have the nunchucks here, which are honestly totally fine. There's really not a whole lot you could do to screw these up because they're just basically a couple colors. Now, as far as the figure itself, you have your par for the course articulation, nice ball joint and hinge joint here for all around motion, swiveling at the arm as well, double elbow joint, you have a nice ball joint on the leg, double knee joint, you have swiveling at the leg as well, you have the little hinge ball joint at the foot, you have the chest and waist articulation, the waist articulation being here a hinge and then a ball joint at the chest. And then you have a nice ball joint on the head. No loose joint problems to speak of on this figure. In fact, some of the joints are a little bit tight, like this knee joint here is really sticky and tight. It's one of those that I worry if I press too hard, it's gonna break. And like a couple of these, they have a really hard time moving their head down at all a little bit, so it's a little bit stiff there. But at least it doesn't feel cheap or loose or anything like that. I've gotten a couple in recent years with bad experiences with that, but your mileage may vary. You could get a loose figure that I don't have a loose figure of, and vice versa. Otherwise, overall, look-wise, I think it's a solid figure. You know, I really don't have too many problems with this. All of the shades of color are pretty much the same. I mean, there's a chance they're slightly different, but they're definitely not noticeable to the untrained eye. I bring that up because there's been a couple figures in recent waves that have had really huge color discrepancies between like the color used on the legs and in the arms and the chest. Like there's maybe a slight difference between the chest and the arms, but they're close enough that it doesn't make a difference. But something like In Space Pink had a huge amount of differences. So this one fortunately doesn't have that problem. I think they did a really nice job on the head sculpt. I think it's very well proportioned. Like it looks rounded just like in the show. It doesn't look too skinny. It doesn't look too fat. The general female mold for this works well. I don't feel like she's overly skinny or overly fat compared to the show. Well, not fat, you know what I mean, like overly bulky or anything like that. I think in general she looks like the suit actor from O Ranger, and I don't have any too huge complaints. Like I'm sure it's not 100% 1-to-1, but for the most part I'm happy with it. Now let's compare it to past versions of the figure. Okay, so here we have the past versions that I own. This here is, this is the legacy version of the figure, obviously, as we always have in most of these reviews. And then this is the original 90s version. The only other versions I can really think of are like the old 8-inch scale figures and then like the bike figures that they used to have, but these are kind of the most comparable mainline ones. Obviously, this here is the most superior choice. You really just want it to look like a thumb monster from Spy Kids. As I've said before, this is clearly the superior pick. I'm just kidding, but as always, you can tell, I think that this is the best pick. The legacy ones, especially the Zeo ones, I actually didn't think were that bad for what they were, but as far as the most accurate and whatnot, this one looks the best. I think the helmet on this one looks a little bit strange. It almost looks alien. I guess Zeo II Yellow, I don't know if you noticed, but it's one if you stare at long enough, it does look weirdly alien. It also looks like a Kaku Ranger white helmet painted yellow with an extra visor, but this one in particular just looked a little bit strange to me, so this is overall the superior pick. And same thing with this one. This is always just here for fun. These are more ones you pick up if you're just into the nostalgia collecting. You know, I know the Lightning Collection figures aren't perfect, but they're usually the most well-rounded and accurate example as far as main figures in roughly the scale goes. And that's pretty much it for this. You know, nothing too special, but overall a very solid Zeo Ranger II Yellow figure. I think if you're a fan of the character and you want to complete your Zeo Ranger collection, I think you'll be happy with it. It's not like one of the best releases of all time, but it's certainly not awful. It's kind of right there in the middle as a solid release for completing your collection. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.